Validation is communication. It's communication that you understand someone's internal experience. Now, let's be clear about what validation is. Validation is not like an attaboy. It's not, hey, thanks for taking out the trash, or even job well done. Validation is like the oxygen in a relationship. When we don't get enough of it, it feels like we're suffocating. When we do get enough of it, it feels like we can breathe deeply and like we're really satisfied with what's happening in our relationship. So it's absolutely vital in order to have a safe and secure relationship. And what I see is that most relationships don't have enough validation. Partners don't validate each other enough. One of the things we talk about in therapy is that as much as you think you're validating your clients, times it by three, times it by four. Do more validation. Because at the heart, validation holds us together. It creates a cohesive identity that is essential for how we see ourselves. If we think about our identity, think about it in terms of how do you see yourself? Well, that identity is supported and sustained through others. And so when we get validated, when other people let us know that our experience as a human being, however strange or odd or what seems out of context, can be understood by another human being, then we feel more cohesive as a person, and our identity is supported and sustained through that process. So, we're going to talk about validation today, and we're going to talk about why it is like oxygen in a relationship. Let's get started.
Welcome to Trauma Free Relationship, a podcast that provides support and guidance to help heal the wounds of attachment trauma. Whether you find yourself struggling with unresolved issues in the past or have experienced trauma in your current relationship, our goal is to provide accurate, scientifically informed information as well as the tools to help you create a secure connection between you and your partner. And here's your host, Tom Philp.
Okay, as I mentioned, validation is a form of communication. It's a communication that you understand somebody's internal experience. It's communicating to your partner, or anybody for that matter, that you understand their experience and that it makes sense, that there's a logic and a reason behind somebody's internal experience, and that their perceptions and their life context make sense. And as I said, we build and sustain and support our identity through being reflected in others' eyes. When they can understand our experience, internal experience, then that creates cohesion in who we are. But what that means is that validation is also very hard, because we have to suspend our own experience in order to use empathy and step into our partner's shoes to look at their experience through their eyes and understand what's going on for them. So one of the great blessings in a relationship is that it's designed to expand our own experience of ourselves by coming up against someone else's experience that is different. And when we can take the time to suspend our own experience long enough to step into somebody's shoes, long enough to validate and understand the context, the feelings, the perceptions of another human being, especially our partner, then everybody starts growing together. There's an old saying in the therapy field, a rising tide lifts all boats. So when one partner begins to expand who they are and broaden who they are, and they can use more validation and more empathy, then that lifts the whole relationship to a different level. So think about it this way. Give you an example. I'm sure that you have encountered a situation like this before. Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody, or you're in a group, and one person starts becoming very dysregulated. They start becoming very upset or very mad. Usually in that context, the best thing to do is to tell them, hey, you're making too much of this, calm down. And of course, they'll see the logic of what you're saying and they'll immediately start to calm down. No, that doesn't happen, right? Usually what happens is the opposite. If you tell somebody to calm down, they start getting more upset. They start getting louder. And why is that? Why is that a weird phenomenon that happens? It's strange because what's happening is you're sending them a nonverbal message that their experience is not being understood, that they don't have a right to be angry, and that it's not valid that they're angry. So, of course, what they do is they interpret that as I'm being invalidated, and that makes me even more angry that I'm not being understood in this context. So, validation is not just a platitude. As I said, it's not like an attaboy, a good job, or even something as simple as, hey, thanks for taking out the trash. Validation is the ability to really understand another person's experience. And as I said, this is vital in our closest, most intimate relationships, and is vital in being able to create a safe and secure relationship with your partner. And I'll say this again, as much as you think you might be validating your partner, times it by 2, times it by 3. Do it 4 times as much as you are, because chances are you're not getting it enough and you're not providing it enough to your partner. So what I want to do in the rest of this podcast is I want to go through 4 ways that we tend to invalidate and 4 ways that we do validate. So we can sort of deconstruct this here. What does this idea of validation mean? Because I think sometimes people have a surface understanding of it, and then really contextualize this in our relationships as what does this look like when we invalidate our partner versus validate our partner. So I'm going to walk through these 8 point scale, if you will, 4 ways that we invalidate, 4 ways we validate. And you can sort of think about your own relationship and reflect as I'm walking through these. Are there ways that you invalidate your partner or feel invalidated by your partner? And what are some ways you can do more validating? Now, this 8-point scale is not mine. This actually comes from Les Greenberg and Rhonda Goldman, who are couples therapists and researchers up in Canada. I believe they were out of York University. But I've always liked this 8-point scale. It's always stuck out to me as being important in terms of maintaining our identity in our relationships that is supported by our partner. So here we go. These are 4 ways that we tend to invalidate our partner. The first one is ignoring. So you simply do not hear the internal experience of your partner. Partner says, I'm really tired. I've had a hard day. And the response is, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? So it's just completely ignored. Now, obviously, there can be exceptions to this rule. You could not have heard your partner. You could be in a completely different place and time. And when that happens, we can make those corrections and we can go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say? But to have this consistently show up where you are expressing something to your partner about your internal experience and to have it be completely ignored is one of the ways that we invalidate. The second way is criticizing. The partner criticizes the internal experience, actions, or the identity of the partner. So you are wrong. You shouldn't feel that way. I don't know why you're thinking like that. That's stupid. You shouldn't feel, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. You shouldn't feel that way. So an example might be, I don't do that. I had a couple that I was talking to the other night, and she was pregnant and wanted her husband to rub her feet. And he was saying, well, I don't want to rub your feet, and look at all these other things that I do. And so what was happening is he was hearing it as criticism, because the way he was interpreting that was, you're not a good husband because you won't do this one thing for me. And what the wife in this particular case was wanting is that, hey, I'm in a vulnerable state. I'm pregnant with our child. I need extra care and concern. It wasn't even about the rubbing of the feet. as it is about extra care and concern, a little more nurturing, because I'm in a vulnerable state. But he heard that as criticism. And so, and certainly that could be the way he was interpreting that. But criticism can also very much be verbal criticism. You're wrong, you're stupid, you're lazy, character attacks. So that's the second way that we can invalidate our partner. The third way that we can invalidate our partner is through what is called dominant defining. So it's where one partner defines the other's reality or explains the partner's experience in a negative way, does not fit the experience of the person. So you have no reason to cry. That's not that bad. These are types of things where one person's experience of reality must be the experience for both people. And I often see this in my couples when they want to start talking about the event at what I call a level 1 communication, where they want to discuss who said what to whom and in what order. And what they're doing is they're debating who has the better memory, and they're debating who gets to define that interaction, whose version of reality gets to define that. And when they talk about it at a level 2 communication, then what actually begins to happen is they begin to make more room for different feelings and different perceptions of the same event. And they open up a space that allows them to be able to talk about that and share the fact that they can have different experience of it. So they're no longer locked into whose definition has to define reality. So this can certainly play out with trauma, where one person's trauma can get triggered and they insist that their version of what happened, their version of the interaction or reality must be adhered to. And they do that because in that moment when they have been triggered through their trauma, their need is so great and so strong that they have to have that buy-in and that validation from their partner, that the way they're seeing it is legitimate. It is legitimate from their internal experience. And so sometimes trauma can really lock us into dominant defining in certain moments. We also see this a lot with personality disorders, borderline personality disorders, narcissistic personality disorders. They have a great deal of difficulty being able to understand that you can have multiple interpretations of one event. And often what they do is they put so much pressure and stress on a partner that their version is the only version that can be accepted in an interaction or of an event that has occurred. All right, so that's the third way we can invalidate. The fourth way we can invalidate is we can misunderstand our partner. We cannot recognize the deeper meaning of the experience that our partner is conveying. It will be okay when your partner is clearly distressed. Tomorrow's a better day. We're not able to sort of understand the full context of why they are sad, why they are stressed, why they are upset, or simply they're trying to communicate something to us and we don't get their line of thought that led them to a result or to a solution they're trying to provide. And so it feels weird to us. So we don't get the context that they're adding. And this is very true with trauma as well. At times, our partner's experience or what they're saying to us can be puzzling because we're not sure we understand where it comes from. And so misunderstanding is part of that 70% where we are often misattuned because we just don't understand the full breadth and context of what our partner is trying to convey to us. So those are 4 ways, and I'm sure there's more, but those are 4 very common ways that we tend to invalidate our partner: ignoring, criticizing, dominant defining, and misunderstanding. And these can show up occasionally in a relationship and cause ruptures, or these can show up consistently in a relationship and cause ruptures. I don't want you to think that these are discrete in terms of they turn on or they turn off. Think about them more like a continuum, that sometimes ignoring can be little bitty small things, or it can be something that's more chronic in the relationship. Criticizing can show up very seldom, only a few times, or it can be something that's more chronic in the relationship. So think about it more on a continuum than more of yes, we have it or no, we don't. So let's talk about now the 4 ways that we actually can validate our partner. So the first way we can validate our partner is we can begin to just understand. We can understand our partner's internal experience through verbal and nonverbal means. So we can suspend whatever experience we're having, however we're conceptualizing that, and we can try to draw out the deeper and broader context of what our partner is communicating. And through our eye contact, our ahas, oh, that makes sense to me. Yeah, we're giving feedback to our partner that we're getting it, that what it is they're communicating to us, we're able to understand. So that's a very basic way that we can validate our partner, is we just seek to understand. There's an old saying that says, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And part of caring is that we are seeking to understand our partner's internal experience. So that's the first way. The second way is we can confirm what they are saying. So we can accept the other person's experience, that their feelings, their needs, their behaviors are valid and that they make sense. That as listeners, we can confirm their feelings in its current and past context. So this helps confirm a stronger sense of identity by confirming the reality of the other person's experience. So not only can we just understand it in the current context, we can also say, yes, and I can certainly understand, given, how you started when you first landed this job, you were frustrated because nobody was helping onboard you. Oh, I can understand that because when you grew up, this happened to you. So I can certainly see why you would look at it this way. And so we can understand it at a deeper level. Not only are we understanding at a surface level, which is the first one I talked about, but now we're getting the broader context of what's going on. And we're still giving them that eye contact, the ahas, yes, this makes sense to me. Oh, that I understand that, so on and so forth. So now we're actually really going deeper and confirming another person's experience. The third way that we can validate somebody's experience is through respect. And so the partner expresses respect for and valuing of their partner. I do care about what you need. I know that when you get stressed, I can neglect you, and I want to hear about how that impacts you so I can work on it because I don't want to hurt you in this way. So when we have respect for somebody, not only do we understand it, not only do we confirm it and its larger context, but then we want to take actions to actually help that person. So there's this level of respect to not repeat a behavior that is harmful, to put down our iPhones and make eye contact with our partner when they feel like they're being neglected or when they're talking to us, to not trigger our partner, at least intentionally, when we know they have certain triggers, to protect those triggers and not try to play into those or exploit those triggers, even in an accidental way. So when we respect somebody, we know about their life, we know about their internal context and internal stories and experience, so much so that we want to do something about it. We want to act in a way that is helpful. So that is the third way we validate. The fourth and final way that we validate is through attunement. And so we can actually confirm our partner's experience, their emotional experience, by fully attuning to what they're saying. The partner shows a full and elaborated understanding of their internal experience of their partner. And this happens a lot in therapy because this is a moment by moment tracking of the person's experience and what's going on with them. And even as therapists, we don't always get this right 100% of the time. But when you're attuning to something, you're not only listening to the words, but you're watching their behavior. You're watching the emotions that are behind what they're saying, and you're tracking them moment by moment to notice any subtle shifts, any slight differences. Are they breathing hard? Do they look down at the floor when they say something? Do they move away from their emotions and all of a sudden go cognitive, where for one moment they were speaking from their heart and it was very heartfelt and they were drawing you in. And now all of a sudden it feels like they're getting philosophical and they're pontificating and you feel further away from them. Do you notice those types of shifts? So this is a skill that anybody can learn. We can all learn to be more attuned to our partner, but it's something you definitely find in therapy. With good therapists, they are constantly tracking the moment by moment interaction between them and their client, whether that be an individual or whether that be a couple. And they're doing so by just noticing any subtle shifts that might be happening. You do this in your own relationship too. You come home and you notice something's a little bit off with your partner. They may not have said anything. They may not have said anything in words, but something compels you. You just feel like there's something different going on. And so you say, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Because you can sense something's different. You can sense it in the air. And so we all kind of know what that's like with our partners. So that's an example of attunement. You're really attuned to those subtle shifts that something's not quite right with my partner. And I'm going to lean in and I'm going to move towards them and I'm going to turn towards them and ask, "What's going on? Are you okay? I want to hear about it." So that's the final way that we can validate our partner. So take this information today, ponder it, put it into the context of your own relationships and ask yourself, do I validate my partner enough? Does my partner validate me enough? Do we often get caught into cycles that cause us to invalidate each other? And I think what you'll find is that as we move towards in our relationships more validation, that it will be like a huge breath of oxygen in our lungs and a huge burst of oxygen in our relationship, or we feel more like we can be at ease and we can breathe deeper and feel more safe and secure. And it doesn't feel like we are suffocating as much, like we can be ourselves. So try this in your relationships. And of course, as always, reach out if you have comments, concerns, questions. Let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to Trauma-Free Relationship, a podcast for the healing of attachment trauma. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or our website at traumafreerelationship.com. Be sure to look for our next episode on your favorite streaming service.